Welcome to Mediumship Moments with second-generation psychic medium Kym Durham. Join her as she shares her personal journey with mediumship, connects with your loved ones, and discusses topics dealing with spirituality.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mediumship Moments. I'm your host, Kym Durham, second-gen psychic medium. Today, I'm thrilled to have an amazing psychic medium join me, a colleague, a friend, and a former mentor, or continuing to be my mentor, John Holland. Hi, John.
Hi, Kim. Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Oh, you're sweet to say that. The honor's all mine. It's interesting. You know, not many people do what we do, and it's always wonderful to hear the someone else who does this professionally, what it's like to be a psychic medium. And I had alluded to you being my mentor. It's interesting, those early days with both you and Janet Nahavik up at this amazing place, Pompton Lakes, the Journey Within. It was a spiritual center that she started and is still in existence. And you can take classes online. I learned, and I've studied there numerous times. So if anybody's looking to learn how to develop their mediumship, check out the Journey Within, Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. So enough about that, but that's how I crossed paths with you originally, working with Janet Nahavik up there. I was just enthralled by your personality, your energy, and how you taught. Many of those lessons have stuck, and I continue to use that.
If you're going to get training, you're right with Journey Within. I mean, the place is so traditional in their foundation, bringing in mediums from around the world. But when I saw you hit the social media, all over the place, and I said, who is this? And I had no problem reaching out and saying, God, you're great. Good for you. Keep going, doing what you do. And that's all I did. I just reached out and said hi and keep going. And then she came back, everyone, and just said, well, thank you, John. But I did study with you and Jen Nahavik, and I went, oh my God, she was a student. So, but because we teach so many, right? But I'm proud of you. You just did the work. You just did the work involved.
To watch the two of you energetically work with each other on doing platform mediumship, and to see the camaraderie, the energy that you both had, and the love that was displayed for this work. Truly, truly, I'm honored that I got to have those moments. I studied with you several times, but the ones that are nearest and dearest to me are at the Journey Within. So now that divine intervention, our guides, our angels have brought us back together again, let's talk about your journey to become a medium, because I find this fascinating, because so many of us have had things happen in our life to move our profession or our life in a different pathway. So give me an idea when you realized you had this ability, John, or how that came about.
When I was a kid, I was one of 5 children, Irish, Italian, Catholic, from Boston, Massachusetts. And like I tell everyone, I was the different one in the family. Instead of playing sports or baseball, you would find me either drawing, sketching, or fascinated by anything that had to do with magic, the soul, spirit, ghost, my favorite TV, anything like that, supernatural. And remember, I'm only a boy, right? Young. And my favorite TV programs, I Dream of Jeannie, Bewitched,
that
and
was
Dark
my mom.
Shadows.
I know. I lovingly say that I grew up watching Bewitched. Absolutely. Loved it.
Right. And I was even fascinated by chemistry. And for some reason, if there was a religious movie on, when I say religious, The Lady of Fatima, the Song of Bernadette, any of those, even Moses, the Ten Commandments, anything that had to do with miraculous miracles. And my mother would just wake me up to watch with her. And I don't understand why, but I guess she knew. And so as a kid, if you're any little different back then, I mean, there's bullying now, but back then, I was the skinny kid with big ears and glasses with a patch who just knew things I couldn't possibly have known, who was going to come over, who was going to be sick. I could read people's minds. And of course, my dad didn't know what to do with me. He said to my mom many times, something's wrong with your son. So now I'm just hers. So I hid the ability, Kim, for many, many years. And I just suppressed it, pushed it. I was born with this natural gift. We all have it, but it was enhanced. So it didn't come out for many years later until I got into an automobile accident. Now, the show Unsolved Mysteries, people can still Google that, Unsolved Mysteries, John Holland. The media made it sound like the accident made me this way. I was always this way. The accident, what happened, I got my life together. It was my wake up call. I was living in Los Angeles in my 20s and having a good old time, partying, working different jobs, not doing what I was meant to do. And that accident that I walked away from, but the car never did. It was destroyed. That was my wake up call. And I believe we all get them. It's what you do about it when it happens. And that's when I went back to, got out of a relationship that wasn't working, started studying the mechanics of psychic ability. And that's when I guess I must have been aligned with what the universe or God, the source, my soul, because that's when things started to happen one after the other. And I slowly started doing readings slowly. And then always keeping my day job, always for 9 years. And then little by little, I started becoming known. And one thing led to another it happened, Kim. And then mediumship started happening 2 years after I was reading cards and aromatherapy metaphysical shop in Los Angeles. People on the other side started showing up. So what I believe happened, right? If anyone who's listening and students, why did it take 2 years? I used to see them as kids, but my consciousness expanded, my aura expanded, so those on the other side could blend with me. And that's when I was ready. And from then on, it's been forward ever since.
It's amazing to me because when I hear this story, there are similarities that I've heard from other mediums, like Mavis Patilla, who was an amazing medium. She was stricken by a disease and they thought she was going to die. And she had an impact in her life that changed the trajectory. So I've heard the commonality of that. I've even lived it myself. But, it's interesting when you said suppressed. I remember being different too. I remember at the age of 9 being fascinated. Now, my mom was a psychic medium. So she actually did parapsychology classes in her living room before she built the office in the house. And I remember being fascinated by a book called Unfinished Symphonies. I mean, what 9-year-old is reading stuff like that, So, there's just a difference about us. I was blessed to have a mom who didn't shun me or turn it down or say, fix her. But I find it interesting that you started doing readings at a metaphysical. You used cards as your focal point for readings. And it wasn't until 2 years later did you, as you said, expand your aura, your auric field to allow spirit to then blend. Let's talk to some of the people out there that are talking about building on this. So would you recommend people using oracle cards to be able to be the stepping stone for this ability?
It's a tool. I mean, whether you use astrology, runes, cards, when I started doing, and the reason why I did tarot cards is because people, the psychic information that would come out of me about people, they'd be shocked. So when I had them look down, because when you're sitting with someone in a reading, you're looking at them or past them, they might they might feel a little weird. So I said, let me use cards because the information that was coming through was so psychically accurate. But I started noticing when I used one of the tarot cards decks, the Aquarian deck, that's what I used when I started. The cards they were telling me things that weren't in the little manual that you get, right? But but I think they're great to start with. Highlight the keywords in it, and then don't always use the book. Let your intuition and your imagination go. But what was happening is that the symbols, the symbols, the colors, they were all talking to me. And I remember the very first time, or one of the times, when I don't know if it was the Empress card, and there's a red scarf. And I looked at them, I said, so how long you've had this throat issue? And she said, how could you know that? There wasn't a throat issue card meaning, but my intuition picked up on that. That was for me. You may notice something else. So that's how Psychic Tarot, my deck, came to be, which was, it's a classic now. What is it, 15 years?
Yeah.
It's around the world.
Yeah.
I never knew that it'd be the biggest thing that ever sold. 2 years into doing these readings, but that's when people on the other side started showing. But whether it's oracle cards or astrology, I love cards because there's symbols, there's signs, there's colors. Just find the one that works for you. Psychic Tarot's, great.
Mm-hmm.
My first one for beginners.
Yeah.
And it's not complicated.
No,
it's
and
not complicated.
I absolutely agree with you on that. It gives you the tool to step out with this ability and begin to build your intuition.
You're building. Yes.
And so I have a question. When you started to do readings, was your family on board with this, or how did they react?
I lived in California. They eventually, my they eventually accepted. This is on my mother's side of the family, by the way.
Yeah.
My grandmother had an ability, but it was like Grandma Rose knows things. Nobody mentioned the word psychic. And my Aunt Shirley, my mother's sister, who lived with my grandmother, she was into dreams. She had all these dream books. So every time I'd go over there, I would look at her dream book. So I had one, not like you. Your mother was practicing so dreams, but it is definitely on the Italian side of my family.
The maternal side, yeah.
After a while, when they started seeing me on Unsolved Mysteries, and I was getting local press in LA and started getting a reputation, still kept my day job. Still kept it.
Still kept it for 9 years.
Yep. And I never set out to do this. I didn't say I want to be a psychic or a medium. I was following the seed of my soul, one of the seeds that was planted there. We all have gifts that we're born with to share with others. I wanted to know, Kym, how does this work? I wanted to know the mechanics of psychic ability. That's why I studied the aura, chakras, meditation, and breath, and Reiki. That's when it was. And then I didn't set out to do this. I just followed where I was going, and doors open. It wasn't always easy, because people think that, when synchronicity happens, it's always easy. No, I just followed the signs, and the right people in the right places, and opportunities just kept coming and coming and coming. And here it is 30 years later.
Here's something when you had said about building upon this and synchronicity. I don't know if I shared this with you, but I heard clairaudiently. I don't know if it was my guide. I don't know if it was my mom from the other side trying to tell me this, but I had heard clairaudiently, pay attention to your social media. Somebody famous is going to reach out and change your life in a new direction. And that was you.
Oh, I was going to say, and who was it?
That was you. No, seriously, that was you.
Oh.
4 months later. So that synchronicity, once somebody comes into your life or that opportunity presents itself, things just start happening.
If you act on it, Kym, if you act on it.
Okay. Well, I was
because you could have just said, oh, I studied with him, whatever. But something told you. It's on your soul, not just the voice that you heard or the inspiration you heard. It's when synchronicity comes, and it comes to us all the time. And we just say, oh, how weird, how strange. No, it's a sign to stop and look of what's happening, because the universe is trying to get your attention.
I talk about chatting with the angels. I think it's the Hollywood, the whole spirit thing, or, the haunting thing. And they tend to go to a negative sense with loved ones who have crossed over. And I'm the science geek. When you had talked about that, I'm all about learning the mechanics. And they talk about string theory and quantum mechanics, where we can be in 2 dimensions at one time. And I find that, just so fascinating. I believe that's how we move forward or see things moving forward in time. Talk to me about the difference with working with a guide versus an angel.
I believe in angels and I believe in guides. I know I have them. People should be careful, though, because they're there to support you, help you, and guide you, right? Not to completely run or control your life. I know there's a teaching guide there. And when I went to England, synchronistically brought me there. I got to sit in a circle, an inspirational circle, for 2 years with 10 other professional mediums, where I had to audition to get into this home circle.
Wow.
And every Tuesday at 6:00, you had to be there, or they would lock the door. Spirit is taking time for you. You make time for it. I never was late, because I'd find the door locked. Well, it was never locked because I was never late. And that's when I started learning about guides and raising your consciousness. And I felt them like a warm blanket around me. And that's how I knew. It was the best feeling. I could feel them. You would feel cold breezes in the room. You would feel these different things. So I know guides are there. And I know one is a teaching medium. When I'm writing, these words of wisdom come in out of the blue. And I'm like, and it's inspiration, because they don't sound like you at all. It's very poetic. So angels, I know they're there. I love them. I guess it's where you put your awareness. I'm more guide related, but they're a piece of my life, not the whole thing. Because I think when people put too much on the angels and guide, they're taking away their own personal responsibility. Yes, they're there to assist you and guide you. So that's how I feel. But I know they're there, and I know that they come and go.
Here's a question. When people have a near-death experience, let's say you see a video and somebody's stepping off the curb, and all of a sudden an arm reaches out or somebody grabs them, and and in that moment, their life is saved or changed, the trajectory.
Yep.
Do you believe that's a guide, or is that an angel? Is that divine intervention?
I don't care, really.
Okay.
to
Okay.
me, to me, it's like, is that my angel, my guide, or a loved one? All I know is divine intervention. I think people try to classify, is this my mother? Is this the guide?
Yeah.
And I think that's the ego side. It's like people want to know, what's my guide's name? If you feel like you want that personal connection, that's great. I know I call mine T because I know he's a teaching medium. It's up to you, but people try to personalize it, and that's great. Don't get me wrong, right? But if I know if somebody pulled me off the side, like I fell from a tree as a kid, and I swear I floated down. Strangest thing, I had the branch in my hand. It was 2 stories high,
Oh,
probably an angel. You know what I mean? But I didn't think, is that a guide? Is it an angel? All I know is my life was saved. I look at it as a little divine intervention. And you know what, Kim? I'll say this to people. I don't understand why it happens for some and not for others.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah. I think it's the soul. I know Anita Morjani, who passed away, or, dying to be me.
Mhm.
And I love working with her because I'm talking to someone who's already been there and been back. Right? I don't need to go there myself, Kim. I'll wait till it's my turn.
Listen,
You know?
I'll take that. My mom had a near-death experience, actually at my hospital that I was working at, which was in of itself just amazing. But she told me all about it and what happened, and I'm like, I'm good. I don't need to tempt fate. I feel like I still have some work to be done here, and I'm trying not to make my guides work overtime or my angels to work overtime. So let me ask you this, John. Do you believe all people have the ability to connect with their loved ones who have crossed over?
You can connect with your loved one, but there's the mediumship as a profession or a career. This is what I think is happening, Kim. I think the consciousness of man is changing. I believe the veil between this world and the next is getting very, very thinner. Now, someone out of the blue, it's happening a lot lately. Someone may be sitting with their girlfriend or a friend, and they keep hearing Joseph, Joseph. I keep hearing the name Joseph. Oh my God, my father, Joseph, passed away. So they're touching the realms of the spirit world. Doesn't mean to be a medium. That's a whole nother training, ethics, responsibility. So I do believe we do have the connection. When you do this work, you have to raise your energy. Those on the other side lower theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And then communication can happen. You and I just happen to do it as a career or a service. Actually, I went into mediumship to help people, not to be famous, not to be an author, not to have an Unsolved Mysteries or History Channel or the A&E channel. It just was what I was supposed to do. I know in life, when I'm doing this traveling, Kim, for many years, and I'm like, oh my God, how long? I chose a life of service, right? So, and I'm grateful for it. And I'm always fascinated. When you see me on stage, when spirit's flowing through me, I am just as fascinated as the audience. I don't know who's having the better time, the people on the other side, me or the audience, because it's the process. That's why I never say, if something comes through that's so specific, I don't say, look at you, or I say, guys, I'm the vessel, but it's your mother who's doing it, or your father. They're the ones that are doing this. I am just a good communicator.
Appreciate how you break that down, because it is when mediumship is flowing. And I've watched, I call it research and development. I've watched other mediums work. It's a wonderful, we all work differently. We have our own life library that we tap into. And when that mediumship, when it's flowing, the vibrational energy is it's falling out of me. It's like faster, almost an anxiety kind of energy. I tease like I'm a thoroughbred at the gate of the Kentucky
That's
Derby,
right.
chomping at the bit to get going. Where the psychic feeling is much more grounded.
I call it the quickening, Kim.
The quickening.
That's what happened to us.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see that happen and taking the responsibility. And you're the great mentor about the ethics. It's one thing, people are like, well, Kim, since you have this ability, and I was shopping at the supermarket and I tell people, listen, I was reared with it never hurts to say hello. Never hurts to say hello. But if you come up to me and you're expecting me to make a connection, energetically, I have to be at a certain vibrational energy to do that. When you have people out there that are learning this ability, the ethics behind, just because you have a feeling doesn't mean you should go up to a total stranger and give a reading. So,
Exactly.
there are circles out there, development circles. I had alluded to the Journey Within. and places that you can sit in the energy and work with other medium. But it's interesting when people start to communicate with their loved ones, whether they sit and journal, connect through an item. The ethics behind it, I think, is incredibly important before you sit with a medium. Do you have any suggestions or advice about people sitting with a medium, what they should look for?
When it comes to psychic ability and mediumship, one is someone who they're getting bombarded by feelings and emotions of other people, and they don't know why. Right? That is me. That is psychic number one. Psychic number two is they took a class, they understand energy centers and chakras. They're not doing anything with it or to further themselves. Three are the masters. Masters understand the mechanics, the chakras, auras, meditation, and breath, so that you are in control of it. It is not in control of you. Because if you come to me and say, I can't get, these dead people are constantly around me, I keep picking up stuff, it's an untrained medium.
Now that the veil is thinning, and there's a greater, when my mom started this business over 50 years ago, there weren't many people. She teased, there was this woman in Woodbury Heights who read from her, had an office in her house, and then, the people on the boardwalk. Like, there wasn't many people who did what my mom did, especially professionally. So when people are going and seeking out to work with a psychic medium, I think it's interesting they say professional, because I'm like, of course we are. I mean, that's a given. You have standards. My previous profession being a nurse, I didn't say I was a professional nurse. I just said I was a nurse. But anyway, what criteria or what do you look for if you're going to sit with a psychic medium?
Word of mouth. There's always a friend or a colleague. They have a tendency to see what's online. And you have to remember the ones you see on TV or online, if you can, that's all edited for time, right? They don't show you the process of what it took to that medium to get that aha moment. If you go for a reading, look at some of their footage also and say, do you vibe with them? Do you feel, because not every medium, it may not be the best medium for you. Just word of mouth, and it's okay to do your research. Do your research. I know there's some online, but the SNU, Spiritual National Union, I even have a list of people a very short list of people that I've worked with, that I've seen work, and that I respected, because there's so many people out there. And you want someone who is trained, someone that's not going to be asking you for the information. They should be telling you the information, but, work with them. So I think word of mouth is best.
I tease, I love to fish, but not in the office. I said, I'm the one that's supposed to be working, not the person who sits with me, and I agree with you. If you take the time to build your abilities, and, I invested and still invest every year. I try to sit with someone to work with them. This year, I went up and, got to watch Dr. Brian Weiss, and just amazing up at Omega, and how he used his background of psychiatry.
Oh, I know. He's amazing. Yeah. He's a good friend of mine, too. And I've known him for years. But I think if someone is about to develop, or they're interested, being drawn to it, it's like a calling to do it as a living. Get to know how your vessel works first. A lot of energy is going through you. And once you open, right, you're not going to understand that it's affecting your whole body, your energy centers, your nervous system on a cellular level. Learn the mechanics of how to turn it on and turn it off. The vessel, your body is one big giant psychic antenna. So just by talking about it, thinking about it, you'll switch on. But you don't want to be walking around, because there's a lot of noise out there, right? There's a lot of noise out there in the world, and, even online. Learn the mechanics of your psychic ability for a solid foundation, and then go to the next. That's just my opinion, my teaching. Then go on, so you can handle the mediumship side of it. And as you know, Kim, most people do. There is a difference between psychic and mediums, right? Some people don't know the difference. Well, psychic is someone who sits in front of you. They're reading the energy around you, your aura, your past, your present, your potential future, because I don't think anything is really set in stone. So they're getting the information from you. Mediumship is different. We're leaving the person. We're still connected, though, in mediumship. It's the love that draws your loved ones. We don't call them, guys. It's not 1-800-dial your mummy, right, or your dad. It's the love that the person in front of you, I'm going to them, and I'm getting information from the other side, not from the person in front of me anymore. So psychics perceive, mediums receive. Mediums receive. Psychics perceive, mediums receive.
Psychics perceive, mediums receive. And I have to tell you, I've used that tagline to just be able to differentiate when people are looking to work with me. And I think there's some people who are out there in front of cameras using the wrong terminology in a sense. And I don't
Sure.
mean that they're doing it on purpose, but I just think that, they're like, oh, I went to see a psychic and she talked to my mom who, has had her wings for 20 years. And I'm like, no, that would be a medium. But, there is absolutely a difference. And I'm glad you broke that down. What is the one thing that you love about your profession? Something that you totally enjoy doing?
I was working the day job and doing readings at night. I was tired emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. It was very, very draining. And I said, you know what? Every time that I feel like I can't do this anymore, in comes a parent that lost a child. Always. And I said, okay, just another yet a reminder of why I originally chose to accept this path. So it's helping someone. It's the loss of someone. If I can give, we can't cure grief. Mediumship is not a cure for grief. It's a tool to help you move through it. Because some people need therapists instead of a medium. I think it's when I see someone's face that they know that their loved one is really still there. It'll always be the connection, Kim, right? Especially when parents lose a kid, because that's the worst kind of loss, I feel, even though I don't have one. Or like me, my dog was my kid, right? So, and don't forget everyone, animals go to the other side, right? And I've seen you do some amazing animal communication also.
I've worked with a group. I inherited, I teased when my mom crossed, some fabulous jewelry and a Catholic priest who, Father John, actually would work with my mom in the Comfort Club, which was a group of parents comprised who have had their children cross, who have lost children. And he used to sneak me in the church basement, and I would sit with those parents and truly to have that honor, to have that connection, to show them that their children are still with them and that they're okay there, but for the grace of God go I. But that I agree with you. That is just an amazing thing. So
Yeah.
here's a flip question. When you talked about animal communication, I want to touch upon that. I tease. I've been chatting with fur babies longer than I have people. Working as a nurse, I told the story. There's a new doctor on board, a team surgeon, and she invited us all over to her house for like pizza wine night. And I show up with a bottle of wine, cut through the living room. And oh my God, here comes a dog from my right hand side across by my feet, right by my knees. And I said, oh my God, I almost stepped on him. I'm so sorry. He's like a little greyhound and his knees subluxing, which just is a big word for meaning the kneecap was shifting out of place. And she's like, oh my God, you could see that too? Well, here she had an Italian whippet, a beloved fur baby that crossed 3 years later. And here was this dog still running around the living room. And that was before I, took over the baton to do this professionally. And they are children. Those animals continue to stay with us. Has your fur baby made his presence known to you?
Because you were an emergency room nurse, or you are, you always will be. You got that license, I believe. So all that medical knowledge is in there for you to use, and Spirit will use it. For me, because of my dog, 16 years, I started getting really into dogs, working with the SPCA, raising money for charity for them, and the energy of dogs, animal Reiki practitioner now. I'm certified. So now I just did a reading I just did a open gallery with an audience, and I can get the breed now. So it's great that when a medium says, oh, they're with your dog, but if you can say, not for my ego, but if, like I just said, oh, she's holding the Pomeranian. Well, some people get more excited about when the dog comes through than their own mother, right?
It's
I can get the size in the breed now, which is fascinating. Not me, but it's in my toolbox now. The medical stuff, me, Art, John Edward, being a phlebotomist, he knows medical terms, and he works at a video store, so he can get movies. It's what Spirit uses in our own toolbox, which is everything you ever studied, everything you've seen, every place you visit. It'll be there, but it's my symbology, what it means to me in my life, meant for other people. Yeah, it's fast. I love the process of it.
Enthusiasm you have for being a psychic medium is infectious. And so if anybody has a chance to study, I know you have classes coming up at the Journey Within. Can you elaborate about that?
Yes, I'm excited about that. I'll be with Mr. Joseph Scheel. He's a spirit artist, and spirit artist is when he's up there and he draws them from no pictures. Not only is he linking to the other side, but he's drawing them So it might show your mom younger or as an older woman with evidence. That's he's one of the best that I know. Him and Rita Berkowitz in New England, and Coral Polge in the UK, who I had the pleasure of sitting with, and she passed away. But September 5th, we're doing where two worlds meet at the Journey Within. Joe and I on the Thursday, and then we go into 2 days of teaching signs, symbols, and images, teaching you all those symbols that you have, and the signs and images can be used for giving a message on the other side once you understand how the process works with symbology. It's fascinating. So that is September 5th, and then 6th and 7th in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. I haven't been there since Janet passed away, so I'm so excited to be there because it's been a number of years pre-COVID.
Yeah,
actually, I haven't been there since COVID.
Well,
that's how long it's been.
It's an amazing place, and like I had said, anybody has a chance to study with John or anyone, Joe, anyone on staff up there, they have. That's the amazing thing. They bring mediums from all over the world, and people come from all over the world to study with them. Colin Bates and Mavis Patella and Tony Stockwell and Janet Havoc and you, and I could go on and on and on. All the people I've worked with up there, I've put in as you said, lovingly put in the time, and I treat this like my nursing, right? CEUs. I continue to learn. I'm a lifelong student. If there's one thing that you could talk about that you've learned from doing this work, what would that be, John?
Well, besides the mechanics of understanding that and quieting your mind so you understand when you're picking up something, because it's such a loud world out there, to quiet your mind. But you did touch on, if you want to study this, if you feel drawn to it, yes, you could learn online. I teach stuff online, but it's more for information. Any chance you get, and you're going to think there's not people in my area. If you can get into a psychic development group or even a meditation group to start, go where you try to find a place where you can sit with others also. Yes, you can do it online, but for me, I like the in-person thing. It could be a little tough sometimes, especially during COVID, but that's, luckily not as bad anymore. So and not every circle is going to be for you. It's not going to be for you. Whoever is leading a circle of development, mediumship, or psychic, it should be about the group and not just about them.
Yes.
Okay. It's okay, because there's some egos in there, right? It should be about the group, and you'll know it right away. And just be a good sitter and listen and watch. And eventually, if it feels right to you, and I highly recommend, go to other teachers. No, I never say I'm the only one to study with. That's like a guru. I don't, you know what I mean? Study with other teachers and take one thing at a time. You don't have to take the Reiki class, the pranic healing, the remote viewing, Reiki, psychic, medium, one thing at a time. And spirit, your soul will guide you to where you're supposed to be going through synchronicity, through that feeling. That's what I say, Kym Durham. Yes, I do.
I thank you, John, for stepping in here and sharing a little bit of your world with me and some upcoming events that you're doing. I'm beyond thrilled to be working with you this coming November 10th. It's a Sunday. We're going to be at the Doubletree in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, the Hilton there. We're going to be doing platform mediumship. Basically, for people that don't know what that is, would you like to share with them?
Sure. Just means doing it in person, where you get to see the process of how we're getting things. And, but Kym has a great energy. And I think we're on the same wave as far as energy. And we both work differently, but similar. And we try to be as accurate and evidence as possible. This is where you see how it happens. That's why I tell people, I tell students too, if you're going for a reading or a demonstration, watching someone else, don't just get so locked into the message. Watch how it's happening, what's happening, the feeling, the highs, the lows. It's fantastic. So, and everything we talked about today, Kym, too, and I'm thrilled to be with you on the 10th in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And an afternoon, I love it that it's 2.5 hours with two of us. All the development that you asked about me in the beginning, that's in my very first book that I wrote in 2003, where I studied it with the spiritualists, Born Knowing, right? So anyone's interested,
great book.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, it's mandatory reading for anybody who's going to walk this path. Absolutely.
And I'll read yours when it comes out. And I'll read yours. Yeah.
I'm plugging away at that. You're sweet to say that, and it's going to be fun when it comes out, because it talks about my life and it talks about doing this work and some of the police work that I'm involved in and the cold cases.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
We've already have these tickets on sale.
We do.
Right? It's already almost half sold out. So even though it's November 10th, you're going to say, I've got time. No, you don't. So if you're drawn to it, if you live in the area or you want to come in to see it, now would be a good time, everybody.
I usually end my podcast with a mediumship moment. And I was wondering if you had a mediumship moment that you'd like to share.
Do one kind act for someone, even if you don't know. One kind act. It could be small. One kind act, because it creates a ripple effect that reaches farther than you could ever imagine.
Well said, John. I thank you so much for your wisdom, your time and energy today. I can't wait to work with you on Sunday, November 10th from 1 to 3:30 doing platform mediumship. Good luck up at Pompton Lakes. If you get a chance, everybody, go study with him. He's got great books at johnholland.com. Keep chatting with your angels, everybody, because they can hear you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time for another episode of Mediumship Moments. If you enjoyed this episode of Kym's podcast, check her out on Instagram and TikTok at Kym Durham Medium.